Hi, everybody. Welcome to Kundalini Hour with Alan Steinfeld, Kai Shanti, which is me. And today we have the beautiful Dorothy Walters, PhD. And I'm really excited to have Dorothy on the show because she's been working with her Kundalini energies. How many years? 40 years?
Years.
Yes. It's super exciting. And I will read her bio so you can get a little idea of where she's coming from. Dorothy Walters was an avid reader in childhood and went on predictably to take a PhD in English literature. She then taught at various Midwestern universities for many years. In 1981, at the age of 53, she underwent dramatic and intense Kundalini awakening, a process that she knew little or nothing about at the time. She had never meditated nor done yoga, nor did she know anyone who practiced these mysterious arts. Nonetheless, in one dramatic moment, her inner energy shot into her head, which then opened in ecstasy as her entire body was flooded with astonishing rapture. This was the beginning of a very long journey, which she traveled alone for almost 15 years. Since there were no gurus or ashrams in her area, Kansas, at that time, she followed her own inner guru through the many stages of a newly awakened Kundalini. She did not even have a friend with whom she could discuss her newfound transformative experiences with. Near the beginning of her journey, she was told by her inner voice that Kundalini was the means by which universal transformation would occur. At first slowly, then rapidly, as more and more people underwent this dramatic change in their lives. This is the stage we are now in, and transfiguration is occurring across the globe. Dorothy has published many books of both poetry and prose and offers free consultation to those in the awakening process. Her latest publication explores the many aspects of Kundalini as it impacts the self within and life without. Welcome, Dorothy. Very excited to have you.
Well, it's wonderful to be here.
I read Dorothy's book this week called Kundalini. Oh my gosh, what was it called? Kundalini Wonder, the God Goddess Within Your Body. And felt just completely enraptured and drawn to Dorothy's energy because I resonate very closely to your heart and the way that you've been experiencing the Kundalini. And yeah, there's a lot I can say about that, but go ahead. What, Alan?
I was just wondering, you said, what happened to you at that, what was that moment? What was the experience? What initiated it? And what was that whole process? How did that happen the first moment?
Well, that's about an hour or two discussion in itself. I won't try to say all of it or describe it, Alan, except that it was, sorry.
That's okay.
Well, I know who that is, but I can't answer. Let me see if I can turn it off.
That's right. My live stream is not going. I have to give you a new stream key, so I'll get it off you later, okay?
Oh, did you change? Okay.
So what?
Okay. There are a couple of things about my awakening that were typical, because many people go through some kind of.
Call cannot be answered at the moment.
Good.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Good. I think they'll be quiet now.
Okay, so can you start over say that again, a couple of things?
Okay. Now I know that a few things were typical in my awakening, not much, but one was many people undergo some kind of trauma in their lives, and it creates a space. And as to quote that rascal guru, Osho, now known as Osho, there's a space and the Kundalini can rush in. And that trauma can be something physical, like illness or accident. It can be psychological, as it was in my case, having to do with a circumstance in my life. It can, for me, It was the threatened breakup of a very long-term relationship. And that was like the bottom of the floor had simply come open and I'd fallen through into darkness. I was very upset. While I was in that state, I was reading a book by a man who at this time was a kind of major futurist, he was known. And the book was called The Time That Falling Bodies Take to Light.
Oh, William Irwin Thompson.
You know him, or you know who he is.
Yes.
That book and his other writings were very influential in my life. And he had this book, and it had maybe 2 pages, and I mean just 2 pages, in which he mentioned Kundalini. So here I was all shook up because I thought my life was disintegrating. I was reading that book, and he said a little something about Kundalini, and I didn't know a darn thing about it. This was 1981. Nobody that I knew anything about this. Nobody. Kundalini was very little known in the United States of America or elsewhere that I know of. But nonetheless, I read these 2 pages and something came into my head. And that something was, I believe I can do this. That is to say, bring these energies up. And so I did. I did. Now, you're not supposed to be able to do this. According to the ancient texts, and even today, many of the ancient practitioners prepared, the ancient yogis, many of them prepared for years to get there. They were told not to try at all unless they had a qualified guru to teach them and lead them and show them how. So they prepared. And they prepared by deep meditation. They prepared by stringent diet. There's one famous yogi who simply ate grass for I don't know how long. He finally kind of turned green, according to legend. So you were supposed to really devote yourself to this awakening. But I didn't do that because I didn't know anything about it. I really didn't know anything about Kundalini, except that I knew there was something, a mysterious energy. And it was said to reside at the base of your spine. And when it came up, it would rise up through the chakras. And I didn't know how to pronounce that word or quite what it was. And it was supposed to come up through the spine and the chakras and go into your head. And finally, after years of preparation and instruction, the idea that it's all described as a metaphor. And the metaphor was that there was this beautiful plant. And that this plant, when it rose up and hit your head, would then open like 1,000 petals opening. And I thought, sure, I can do that. So naive. But the thing was, I did meditate on the lower chakras. I didn't know their name exactly, but I'd seen something where a Qigong teacher had talked about how your energies were there and they would sort of surround you in a ball. He called it your ball. And pretty soon I felt an energy field, and it was like an energy ball. I thought, well, I've done part 1. Now I have to get that up. How do I do that? Now this is kind of funny, but I'll confess. I thought, well, I have to do yogic breathing. I didn't have the vaguest notion what yogic breathing really was, but I just intuitively did deep, what I would call deep breathing, breathing in and out slowly. So, and very quickly, after a couple of minutes of this, my ball, which was in the lower chakras, shot into my head.
Wow.
And my head opened. My crown opened. I didn't have the right vocabulary, but it was like a beautiful flower opening. And it was like pulsations. That's why they said it is the lotus opening, because it would go open, 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 and each pulsation was pure rapture.
Wow.
Now my head was full of rapture. And I thought, well, this is very interesting. Of course, it was wonderful. It was unbelievable. It was delightful. It felt very sacred, very divine. And after a few minutes, I don't think it was more than, surely not more than five, I'm not sure. I thought, all right, now I brought this up. How do I get it down? I didn't know. But I did concentrate, and pretty soon it went down. But it wasn't quite like the books describe, because it didn't just go down the spine. What it may have pretty much done that the first time or two, but very quickly after I repeated it in a few days, I kept doing it every day. It simply diffused throughout my entire body. It wasn't just my head that was in rapture. My whole body was in rapture. And that's the way it continued for me. That is whole body diffused ecstasy for the next 40 years.
Were you able to function at that first couple weeks?
Sort of. I started having internal images and different things, doing different things, following different inner instructions. And at first, my head was very upside down in that I couldn't, it wasn't very coherent. And when I listened to somebody, it was hard for me to get what was the end of the sentence and what was the beginning with other people. I was incoherent. But fortunately, I didn't have to go to work because it came at a perfect time, which was the end of May. I was a school teacher. I didn't have to go teach school. I could spend time alone at home and just let it happen. And later, when I thought about this experience, I realized I had actually been guided through an initiation experience. And I promoted some of this myself. Thompson had mentioned that in the Tibetan yoga tradition, you would hold a bell and a vajra. And I decided I would do that. And where was I going to find a bell and a vajra?
In Kansas.
In Kansas, in my house. This all was in Kansas. One of my friends said, this is kind of like later, much later when I told her. She said, this is like a cosmic joke. You had all this experience here in the middle of Kansas. And I said, yeah, it's true. I don't know how that happened. But
Well, there's also Dorothy of the Wizard of Oz. That's a little bit ironic.
I know. I know. And, people love to later, many years later, people say, well, Dorothy, you're not in Kansas anymore. I tell you something. When I was in Kansas, I wasn't really in Kansas, but someplace else. So anyway, that happened. I went through other aspects of what I later, and again, this was years later, recognized as what is called the first level Buddhist awakening, the first level. And it has different aspects. And I went through those in a certain way. And so then I was initiated. There's no question about it. But I continued to have this diffuse rapture every time I tried to do anything on it. Anything. One thing I tried pretty soon thereafter, I thought, well, I've heard of yoga. Now I heard of one person in my city that did yoga, and nobody else did. We thought that was pretty far out. What was yoga? Some esoteric, mysterious East practice. So I decided I would do yoga. And what did I know about it? I had a little book about yoga. My mother had bought it at the grocery store for like 59 cents, as I recall.
In Kansas?
Oh, yeah. I had it. She got it she was in Oklahoma, I guess. But anyway, she got it at the grocery store in Oklahoma. She was always kind of fascinated by these mysterious things, but never really did anything with them. So I decided to do yoga. And this is how I did it. I just sat cross-legged, what they call Taylor pose. And while I was sitting there, I raised one arm up, and my arm was flooded with ecstasy. And then I raised the other arm up, and it was flooded with ecstasy. I thought, golly, this yoga is really something. And just think, it's so easy, and anybody can do it.
Wow. This is great. This is, I just want to comment that what you're saying, it seems like it seems like it's our natural state. It's what we all can do if we choose to do it. And somehow you were just knew yourself, I think, maybe more because of what you were going through. Something, there was a doorway opened and grace descended. And
Grace descended.
I think it's our time for the planet now.
That's right.
Are you still getting those same waves coming through you, or did it change over the years?
Oh, it changed and changed and changed. I often say at first, this is just my equivalent. At first, it was like having a big brass band march through your living room. It was really intense. And, finally I reached a stage where I just lay on the floor and opened my arms and said, here I am, God, take me, do what you will. And it happened. Okay, but then this experience lasted in different forms for over 40 years. Now, as it went on, I noticed this. It got more subtle. It was no longer like a big brass band. It was like listening to a beautiful flute play in the distance, but it was still wonderful. So as time went on, it got softer, more subtle, and finally less frequent, but it didn't go away entirely. And I would have unexpected episodes. I wasn't really practicing too much of anything, but surprise, surprise, here I am again. And it was so sweet and so nice. And it was often very unexpected. You know, I remember one episode, I think I was trying to make smoked meal and in the kitchen for breakfast. And here it came, you know, and that was interesting. And I know I have another entry in one book, and I called it Rapture in a Chair because I was sitting in my chair, just my office chair, looking at the screen. I don't know if it was one, and maybe something came on, or a piece of music, different pieces of music would start it. And then there I'd be in this ecstatic state just from this. Now, you must keep in mind, I still didn't have anybody to talk to about this. Nobody. No friend at that time. No friend, no teacher, no guru. I got plenty of nothing except rapture. Except rapture.
Dorothy, how did you know that it was okay if you didn't have anybody to talk to? Just because it felt so good, or did you just have that inner knowing, inner connection?
Well, I had asked for it to come up. I tried in the first. That's how it came up. I asked for it. I said, I want to see if I can do this. And it did. It went from the lower energies in the lower part of the body straight up into the head. And then it was rapture. What else? And I felt that's what I read in that book. That would happen.
So you just knew.
Well, what else could it have been?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way they described it. That's the way I asked for it. It was total ecstasy, total rapture. What else could it have been?
Mm-hmm.
And I was never afraid. Some people said they're frightened. I wasn't at all. Because I felt it was a divine connection. I really did. It was. I wasn't making this happen. I couldn't make it happen.
Right.
Grace.
Did you have other benefits like healing? Did you find healing happening in your body or sending healing energies?
Well, this is interesting. I never, except a few times, tried to heal with this energy. To me, it was a devotional experience. And each time felt very sacred and very devotional. First of all, I wanted to do energy healing. I always wanted to do it, but the circumstances never seemed quite right. And I worked on just a few people. And they said things like, when I said, how did it feel? And one just said, rapture. So I was transmitting something.
Shocking.
Something. Yeah. But I didn't have anybody really to work to practice on. And I didn't want to find a teacher because I was having such intense inner teaching that I didn't want to stop and try to learn somebody's system. You know, I just didn't want to do that. And then after a while, I didn't have anybody to work on at all. So.
What about your own body? Did you have healings in yourself, inside?
I didn't have too much to heal. As the experience went on, yeah, it went through the body and healed the blocks. And it was like, it'd be one thing and it would push and push, the energy would push and push and push till that block went away. And then I'd say, good, I did that. And then pretty soon another block would show up and I'd have to get through that. And this went on for many years. These were not really horrible experiences. Some people just have terrible things. And this was not that terrible. It was uncomfortable. But I would say, yes, it was healing. And finally, after many, many, many years, I pretty well got through those rocks. And I think I was healthier throughout than I would have been otherwise. I'm still pretty healthy, but and I don't know whether I'm healthier than I would have been otherwise. I might have been healthy anyway. I don't know, but it seemed like that took place on its own.
Right.
And I'm still pretty healthy for my age. I'm 92 last birthday.
Congratulations. I have a question from Donna Lee. She said, Dorothy, you said you were guided a bit. Do you feel that there is another quote unquote being, such as a guru, and a higher plane that gave you this initiation?
Absolutely. It didn't come from me, it came from somewhere. And it was directed by some higher being. And I've thought a lot about who is that high. And the other thing that happened was that, which in a way has been a healing for other people. Before the year 2000, about 3 years before, I met Andrew Harvey I'd moved to San Francisco, and I still didn't have anybody to talk to. I thought San Francisco would be full of wise gurus and so forth, but I didn't find it. When I tried to tell a couple of people what was going on with me in the rapture, I got the answer such as, if you're lucky, you'll get over this.
Wow.
That was one answer. I asked a very well-known and qualified Qigong teacher about it, and she said, oh no. She said, there's nothing like this in the literature.
Oh boy.
Oh,
That was kind of discouraging because she was an authority. So I didn't tell anybody else till I met Andrew, and that was, I was auditing his class he was teaching there. And I did tell him because, well, he's from India, he's supposed to know all this stuff. So I told him, and Andrew recognized what I was telling.
Was that the first person then?
That ever really recognized it.
Wow.
Or could tell me anything about it. And I showed him some poems I'd written, some poems. They're pretty good. And he said, we've shared this story, that he absolutely groaned when I handed him these poems, because students will hand you some very bad poems. And he thought, oh no, not again. And he read the poems, and next time he saw me, he said, I liked your poems. I want you to write a book of poetry. And I said, oh, Andrew, I can't do that. I write a poem from time to time. I can't write a book. Yes, you can, he said. You're going to write a book of poems. And I wrote a book, and it was called Marrow of Flame. And it was the first published book of poetry. And many people have loved that book. And they have said to me, this book was healing for me because it described my own experiences. Not exactly, but very close. And I recognized myself. I wrote a book of prose. And what did I call it? I wrote a book of prose.
The Unmasking the Rose?
Thank you. Unmasking the Rose, because the rose is the archetypal symbol of wisdom or sacred knowledge. But unmasking the rose to me meant really getting into it, really going through it, not just wondering what the rose stood for, but experiencing much of what the rose stood for. So I had somebody just the other day who said to me, that book saved my life because I was having a similar experience and had no one to help me. Now, I think when we're ready to get on to the question of what's going to be the impact on humanity and the planet, do you want me to jump to that?
Yes.
Well, I just wanted to ask you one thing about what you said. You said maybe there was a guru sitting on another level, but couldn't that be you, your higher self, your more divine?
And I've thought about that too. And I've also thought about past life,
Right.
because this was surely from some past life.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I think it was there. I think it was somebody connected to me in this life. And that's the only rational explanation I can come up with. I think that was, I believe that idea that when we were born, we bring whatever level of evolution that we reached at that point. And I think that somehow I inherited or touched into or was tapped into by another being in another lifetime.
Right.
And I started, in a way, frankly, I think I started at the top. You're supposed to go through all these experiences and lifetimes. And so at the very end, you're supposed to open the crown and all these things. But that's where I started,
But perhaps you had already reached that level in another lifetime, right?
That's what I'm thinking. I really am thinking. But it was then transmitted to me when I came through in this physical form. I think so. Yeah, I think so. Definite connection. And I even have I have one past life memory that may be connected to that. And it was not about being a very highly evolved person. It was something else, but it was definitely seemed to be connected.
Wow. Thank you.
So I don't know how common this, I know a lot of people are having Kundalini awakenings, but what does that mean? What kind of awakenings are they having? Some people have a little small awakening, and maybe they feel a little rapture, or maybe they feel a little this or that. But this was the big enchilada. It really was.
Yeah, you have the kind that everybody wants to have.
Well, in a way, that's true. And then they want me to give it to them. And I did not do Shaktipat because I met one person early on at a workshop who had been given Shaktipat, and it nearly killed her.
Really?
She wasn't ready. You have to be ready at some level to receive this. And even if you don't eat leaves and live in a cave, you still have to be ready, your energy. And I found out, I think this is true, the reason the old yogis did all that was so their bodies, their energy bodies, would be prepared to receive the intense energy that would come into their bodies when this happened to them. That's why they did all that, to be ready.
I think that's interesting because I would wonder about that guru, because coming from a Shaktipat tradition, and I give Shaktipat myself, but I just allow the Kundalini herself to give the Shaktipat. And I don't think that if you completely surrender to the energy, she'll ever give a person more than they can handle. But if the guru's using more of an egoic perspective, I could see that could happen.
Well, this happened to her, and it scared me.
Yeah.
She woke up paralyzed in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And I think, I'm sure that you're very careful, and your people have a wonderful experience. But there are a lot of people giving Shaktipat, and the people they're giving it to are not prepared. And you probably know how to gauge that.
Well, because I don't do it, I fully surrender to the Kundalini and let her do it. And I've noticed that some people really, they want an experience, but the Kundalini won't give them the experience they want because I don't think they're ready for it yet.
Good, good. Well, I said I had that early experience and it frightened me at the idea that I might be triggering somebody who wasn't ready.
Sure.
Yeah. So I try not to, but people sometimes say they have some experiences anyway.
Your energy is very powerful. I can absolutely feel your Shakti flowing just from being in your presence.
Thank you. Where were you when I needed you? Where were you?
So
wonderful. But I love it that I found you. And the fact that you're doing, both of you, Kundalini, the whole program. And I just looked back and I could cry.
Oh,
there I was with nothing and no one, not even a friend, for years and years and years. And now this is available. It's like a miracle. But I was told at the first, nothing but you won't know anybody. You'll be very alone in the journey. Then things will pick up. You'll meet a few people. And then it will accelerate. It will accelerate exponentially, and then it will spread planet-wise. And that's part where we are now. And you're doing your part, which you can do. And that is, I am grateful to you. So grateful. It just makes me so happy.
Well, talk about the thing you wanted to talk about, the planetary effect and how that's going to change.
It's happening. It is happening. There is no question. I don't travel, even in this country, but we're hearing reports, and you say that all kinds of people contact you. Well, in some form or another, it is happening. And these reports, as you know, I'm sure, are coming in from all over the world. Okay. Of course, you know Gopi Krishna's work. Yeah. And he said that, as far as I know, he was the first one who said to us that Kundalini was the engine for planetary transformation, evolutionary transformation. So that was always in the back of my mind, that Gopi Krishna said this was going to happen.
What year was that he said that, or what era? Do you remember?
I think
80s?
I think he wrote those books 70s and 80s, didn't he?
Oh, okay.
I think that was about it. And he was still alive when I was. And I know people who met him, but I never did. I just read his books. But I always thought the first book, Kundalini, the evolution force, the evolutionary force, or however it went. Anyway, he saw Kundalini as the force of human evolution. And I think that's exactly right. We are evolving, and we're not there, we're not totally evolved, but we're getting glimpses and tastes and mind expansion experiences. There's no denying that. And I still have kind of nice little, what I call fairly minor experiences, such as I always envied the people who said they could smell these wondrous odors. And I wish that I could smell wondrous odors. Well, lately I've begun to smell these odors. And it happened. First, it was like, first time, and it was only a couple of months ago, it was like the scent of incense, and a nice strong incense. I don't know where it came from. And then later it was a floral smell. I thought that was lovely. And then later it was I opened the door I'd been out and I opened the door in my apartment. I smelled this wondrous odor, just beautiful. Now, this is the clincher. Just the other day, I came home and a friend was with me. And as I opened the door to my apartment, and boy, it was lovely. And I told it to her because she is a yogi and knows about things like that. And she said, yes, I smell it too.
Wow.
And I thought, now that is really something.
Uh,
Two people, and I've known other instances where things happened, but two people experienced it together. And I think that is not of the odors, but one friend heard the music of the spheres, and so did the woman who was with her. And another woman I know, when she was younger, was in a small meditation group, and she saw a vision of Jesus in the room in front of her. Well, on the way home, she was telling the guy she'd come with. He said, yes, I saw him too. I love those kind of dual experiences because then you think, well, it isn't just me.
yes.
It's just
Well,
me.
when was the first time you met someone else who had an experience like you?
Of the odor.
Yeah. Well, what was it like when you met someone who finally had an experience like you had? How was that? What was that like?
Well, I've known very few people. I thought I would, but frankly, I've met very few people who've had an experience like mine, where it was instantaneous, where it was ecstatic, and where it lasted. And honestly, I've only met a handful of people like that. I've met people who've had, I think every Kundalini awakening is different. Everybody has a different experience, but very few that I've met had instantaneous experiences that was recurrent. But I'm sure there are other people, because I don't know that many people. But I met one woman, let me think when that was, or anybody who had a similar experience. It would have been, I don't know, 10 or more years ago, I guess.
But finally, you met someone. Must have been satisfying that you weren't.
Oh, yeah. And I met somebody who'd had her own Kundalini experience, and we met at a workshop. But then we didn't meet again, except maybe once later. But we would talk on the phone. And that was so wonderful to have somebody you could just talk to. You could tell your experience to, they would tell their experience. And it was fabulous.
It's like floating into the arms of the divine, I find, when I'm able to just share with somebody else who understands.
Oh, yeah.
Coming out of the world of a lot of people who don't understand and don't know what you're talking about. And then you just go, oh.
Yeah, nice. That's nice. Yeah, no, I've had at least two people where I could talk to over time. And that was helpful.
But what about the future now? What about the evolution of humanity? What is the
Okay, well, first you've got, I'm sure you know all this, you've got Gopi Krishna who said, this is going to happen. Okay, and then you had the others like Sri Aurobindo, and you can trace it in history. You've got, the alchemists in the medieval times, and that's what they were after, to create what they called Adam Kadmon, which was the perfect man. That was the Kabbalists who wanted to create Adam Kadmon, the perfect man. So there were those who were kind of working in secret. But they had the idea that humanity could evolve into another species, another construction of our species. But they all had to stay hidden because their work was considered very dangerous. And the alchemists, of course, put it out in public that they were trying to turn base metals to gold. And that was acceptable because they were working on things.
Mhm.
Let it be known that they were really working on the base metal of the human species into the gold of the perfect being, they would have been in big trouble. So my vision is that we're right in the middle of it right now. That all of the people who are having these unusual, call them mind expansion experiences, and they're at different ways. In different ways, I always think of it as a mountain, and we're all climbing the mountain, but we're all at a different place on the path. We're struggling up. Nobody, and even when you think you've reached the top, you haven't. There's always more. And what can happen is you think you've reached the top of the mountain, and then one day you wake up, you're back at the bottom again. And I say,
Yeah. Oh, and she loved that.
and even when you have this sudden awakening and quick awakening, instant awakening, then you got to go back and deal with everything you jumped over on the way up.
Mm.
You have to go back and I say climb. Now you can climb the mountain on your hands and knees. You're not whisked to the top. You have to climb it again on your hands and knees. And you've got to deal with all those issues that are still clinging, whether they're your mental issues, psychological, emotional, physical. You got to go back and clean up your junk. And that's when you feel distress in your body and it goes through you. And you hope everything's going to be all right.
I think that's really important for people to hear because that's such a major part of the journey. And I think that people get distressed when that happens as, you know, oh, I've reached this high state. Oh, well, what now? Why do I feel awful?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now what's my problem? And I've got all these problems. Yeah.
Well, but also separate from that, it seems to me that the vibration of the earth itself is assisting more humans.
Exactly. And one of the gifts that was given to me, not so much now and here, but I haven't even been out of the country that much, but I was born on St. Patrick's Day. And the result, and I've always loved Ireland, therefore, and I've been there several times. Well, in Ireland, when I went to the sacred places, I could feel the energies of the earth coming right up through my body. And it was bliss. It was ecstasy in those. And I knew why they had built their temples there or simply their holy wells and all. You can feel the energies. I kind of think our ancestors could feel those energies too. That's why they call them holy wells. That's why they built whatever holy structures that they did. And the most sacred place in Ireland that I know of is Tara. And you always hear Tara, T-A-R-A.
Oh.
Tara. And Tara is the place where the kings of Ireland were crowned in ancient times.
Wow.
But we had a feminist guide. And when we reached there, a little group, she said, you will hear that this is the great place of the patriarchal kings. But before that, this was the body of the great mother.
Mm.
You are standing on her root chakra right now. And boy, she said that I almost passed out. It was joy. It was very interesting. She was very upset that as happened everywhere, the patriarchy, removed the great mother energies, and of course, it is the great mother. And it was amazing. I think that's the most sweet energy I've ever felt. I felt Tara's energy even before we were allowed to go into the grounds. Of course, nothing is there except the grounds, and they are in a concentric circle. And you can walk. That's all the buildings that were made out of wood, and they disappeared. But the energies are very powerful there.
Do you feel that's related to the Tara and the Buddhist, the Divine Mother Tara?
I don't know. I don't know. It's very interesting coincidence.
I say that a lot when the divine energy comes through me. I say Tara a lot.
Do you? Well, which one are you talking about?
I don't know. That's interesting.
You know that her name is Tara. Well, it may. I don't know. That's a very interesting theory.
Well, maybe the name Tara for Earth also is part of that.
Oh yeah, right.
Understanding, the Earth energies itself is Tara or terra firma. But I want to ask.
Yeah, go ahead. You think Terra and terra firma? Well, they might have some connection. I don't know.
But Dorothy, when you go into these ecstatic states, would your consciousness leave? Would you have visions of beings and entities?
Not. Well, at first I had all this inner initiatory stuff. And I didn't have a lot, I would say. I don't think I had so much of beings. My focus was almost exclusively on the feelings I was feeling, which is to say ecstasy. And that's what kept me going. I felt that ecstasy was my guide. It was the expression of my guide. No, I don't think I did. I just loved to read the ancient yogic texts. If I didn't have other work to do, I would just sit around and I would just read those. I'd certainly read, I'd read the things like the Spanda Karika, which is one of my favorites. Karika just means riding on, and Spanda simply means pulsation. And it predates modern physics. That's what they're discovering, is what the ancients were writing about without any laboratories or libraries or anything. They were getting it, certainly.
And when you read it, did you feel that as well when you read those texts?
Well, I certainly loved it. And probably at times I was in a more ecstatic state. But the ecstasy was always my guide, whether it was an ancient text or feeling inside or whatever. I feel that I was extremely blessed, because it certainly changed my life totally. Once you experience this, you don't go back. You cannot go back. You're changed totally forever. And I just feel very blessed.
Do you feel that you came in this lifetime to do this work then?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I do. I do. And also, I've often said, I'm sure I volunteered. If I had known what that meant, really.
Exactly.
I don't know if I've been so quick to say, go back and I'll help with this project. And I think and what I wanted to say about writing, I write poetry very quickly. They just come like channeling. My next book is called The Goddess Speaks, because I think that's what's speaking in those poems. And many, many, many people have said to me, your poems are very healing.
Mhm.
Wow.
They
Can
help.
you read one of your poems to us from that next book, or something that
Well, I
you,
didn't bring a poem from the next book.
or any book, any of the
Well,
ones
it's a
that
book called the Kundalini poems.
great.
They're all inspired, all by Kundalini, but they're not recognizably.
Well, I have to get that one. That sounds amazing.
The next book sounds great, doesn't it? Well, they all sound great. Yeah.
Well, see, I've written a lot of poetry and a lot of books of poetry. I've just kept writing. I don't have a terribly large following, but I feel like a friend of mine who was a wonderful spiritual teacher, and she went to a workshop on how to market your workshop, and she answered, "Well, I pray that the right people will come." That's the way she marketed her workshop. Well, I pray on the poems that the right people will find them.
Mhm.
I haven't worked for numbers, or certainly not for money. There's no money at all in metaphysical or uh, spiritual poetry I don't. Anyway, here's a poem I opened to. Let me see if I can read it. And I just opened to it. I don't know. Uh, it's called No Entrance Fee. In order to get to this place that I'm telling you about, you do not have to pay an entrance fee or enroll in a course. There will be no official there directing traffic or multiple signs telling you which way to go. You will not have to purchase a fancy meditation cushion or an expensive mala to protect you from evil. You will, however, have to kneel down and open your heart and let the light flood in. If you are no longer if you are no longer able to kneel, then let your mind go there. There will be plenty of light to go around, and you will get your share. You will then know for certain that you are loved, and there's no price tag on who you are.
Gorgeous.
Well, let me find another one that was bookmarked for some reason.
The books are available online, right? Amazon.
Amazon, you know,
Yeah.
everything. And also, I'll mention, by grace, I have been given now a fabulous poet publisher. And it's a small press called Emergence Education.
Right.
And this publisher, for reasons I didn't understand, liked my poetry. I was overwhelmed. And the wonderful publisher's name is Jeff Correa, and he does workshops himself and teachings and so forth. But he and his wife, Amy Edelstein, together publish books that they think are significant because they point to the future.
Oh, I think I know them. They used to be with Andrew Cohen, right?
That's right.
Yes, yes. Great people. I've interviewed them. Yes.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And he actually said to me, I couldn't believe it. He said, I'll be happy to publish anything you write. Can you imagine what that means to a basically unknown poet of all things? Most publishers today will not look at poetry of any kind.
Right.
They don't think it sells good.
Yes, it means somebody truly saw your heart. Thank God.
So what?
Someone truly saw your heart. Thank goodness.
Well, finally, it was a long way. So I'm going to read you what is that the first very poem of the Kundalini poems. And it's the invocation to Kundalini. Oh, mother of all mothers, goddess of all the gods, hold us tightly in your embrace. Let what was unknown become known. What was hidden come to light. This is our time to come together, to be infused with your divine energies, to know that we are yours eternally, even now, as we move ahead into the vast unknown. Drown us in the sea of love.
That's
Wow.
Well,
That's powerful.
you.
that's the that is the invocation, because I think we're all infused. We're part of this process, and we're all a part of it one way or another. And here's one called Sacred Emissaries.
I don't know if I can take another one.
Okay. Oh, maybe
No,
I'm
they're
just
good.
kidding.
Please come.
they're great.
I'm getting so high off of these. Go ahead.
No, but I think they're great. So
They're amazing.
I want to hear more.
I'm kidding. I do too.
Maybe that's enough. There are lots of ecstasy poems in here.
Mm.
And of course, ecstasy is ineffable. You can't put it into words. That did not stop me from trying.
No, please, well, take a drink, please. But I want to hear a few more, if you don't mind.
You want to hear what?
A few more, if you don't mind.
Well,
She'll be okay.
It would, but it's really making me. Whew. It would be interesting, Dorothy, to make recordings, like an album.
our recordings on YouTube. Andrew Harvey and I made 4.
Oh, okay. I did see one of those yet.
Yeah, and one of them is simply a reading.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Andrew has this beautiful voice. He's got one of the best speaking voices I've ever, I don't. He has an Oxford accent. I have an Oklahoma accent. So, but anyway, we read our poems together.
Your energy comes forth with your expression, though, so powerfully.
Thank you. Well, here's one which is called Sacred Emissaries. And that's us, all of us, who are seeing this and hearing this and being this. Some of us have been priests and priestesses since time began. In Egypt, We served in the pyramids. We cast the spells, mixed the potions to bring healing to the people and food for the land. In Greece, we roved the mountains, thyrsus in hand, uniting with nature, the oracle speaking words with earth's tongue. As shamans, we flew high into the heavens to bring down light and sacred wisdom. The gods were merciful, shared the secrets, yet many died on the way. But it was there in sacred East that we truly found our path. In union with the gods, they and we were one. Our ceremonies of fire and chant calling them down, and we became other. We still inhabit this present world that does not care. We are called by different names, live hidden and sacred, seldom seen. Mountains, forests, running streams. If you look, you will find us there. If you listen, you will hear us speak. Sometimes we will arrive suddenly. Fill your bodies with a joy you cannot name. Beautiful to watch you. Thank you. Beautiful. You went there. You went someplace. That's for sure. So my prayer is that the right people find these writings, these poems, and some of that prose.
They are finding it. They're finding it right here, right now.
Right now, yes.
Finding. I'm finding you. I'm finding it.
Well, you are, aren't you? I don't know how you found me, but thank you.
I don't know. How did you find Dorothy, Kai?
I think the Bat Gap interview. Bat Gap.
Yeah, I thought that was meaningful.
I think that's.
I thought he did a great job, and I think that interview is probably the best place to look. Yeah, I think so.
Hopefully, maybe we'll have you on more. I don't know. I'm feeling so connected with you.
Well, I'd love to.
See what evolves.
This is, as I said, I'm so grateful that you have this program, and but I also am grateful that we now, through the internet, can communicate with people without having to travel in person to give the work. You see, I can't do workshops at this stage. And in person.
Right. And that's the beautiful thing about what's happening right now is that now these are just becoming second nature to people because.
I know it's so, and it's so that's how it's spreading. It's spreading. And it's amazing.
I think I have, let's see, Yoga with Brandy says, Dorothy, how can people experience this ecstasy without an initiation by the cosmos or a guru? And then the second question by Meena Devi is, how would you say that the Kundalini energies have transformed your human personality?
Well, what was the first question?
Yeah, I know. I should ask you one at a time. How can people experience this ecstasy without an initiation by the cosmos or a guru?
Well, I have a friend whose blog site is my sacred other is the cosmos. He's getting close.
No, I just want to jump. I don't think you can. I mean, that's the whole idea. It's like
you can ask for what I say to people when they ask that. I say you can't make this happen. It is through an act of grace. But what you can do is prepare yourself so that in case something like this happens, you're ready. And it'll be the right time, and you'll let your inner guide, the inner guru, whatever you want to call it, the cosmos grace, you'll let that prepare you and know that when you are prepared, that will know. And for me, I said I think it was like the perfect spiritual storm. I knew later, I said, this is not happening by accident. This has been arranged for me. And it was almost like this happened, this happened, this happened. And as if somebody said, okay, we've got her, take her, right. And they did. And I weathered the storm somehow. Yeah, I went through quite a lot. It was not all, joy and dancing, but it was well worth it. I'm so glad.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes me so happy to meet both of you.
You too. Wait, I have the other question was, how would you say that the Kundalini energies have transformed your human personality? Do you have a comment about that?
Well, I lived in a secret world then after this happened. I had to learn to live in the two worlds. I think anybody who goes through this does. I was totally transformed. I was transformed cell by cell, molecule by molecule.
Yeah.
To a different physical being.
Yeah.
I was transformed in that the veils were lifted. And I don't, not entirely. And I pray that they will not be, because I don't think we would withstand a full, we couldn't take it. I don't know if you remember it in the Bible, when Moses wanted to see the face of God, he didn't get to see the face of God. He got to see the backside of God as God passed. He would have been killed if he'd seen the whole thing. There's the wonderful myth in Greek mythology, the woman, and I believe it was Semele, who had extracted a promise from Zeus that he would grant any wish that she wanted. And she asked to see God as he really was. Well, she saw that and she turned to ash. There's no human in our present form can withstand that. We can feel God and know God as far as we are prepared or are able, and if we want to stay on this earth. But if we get too much, it would destroy us, I think. So we get as much as we can take.
Also, Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, the vision wasn't able to withstand the vision of Krishna.
Yeah, we can't take it. It's too much for us. Yeah.
Well, we're evolving to get closer, at least, I think, to something.
I think we're making progress. And I think for me, the divine energy is the energy of God. It is divine. And we can feel that. We're allowed to feel that to the extent that we are prepared. I thought there were times when I thought this is too much for me. I can't do this. But somehow I did survive in the correct amount. Sometimes I thought it was more than I would ever be able to take, but then I could. And you learn as you go along, and it's tempered. It's stepped down for you, and it gets more subtle, more and more. I've had wonderful experiences, not each time, but sometimes where all I had to do was move my fingers about like this, and boy, that was it. Or the other thing, and this was interesting, and I didn't continue with this, but there have been times, certainly, when all I did was move my eyes this way and that way, and move them left, and you feel the thrill of it, of that sacred energy go all the way down your left side. Feel this, you feel the energies, the sweet energies go down your right side. I think that was just one indication, one clue. And I don't do that anymore, but it finds me, even when I'm not doing a practice or neglecting a practice. And it will, as I said, come when I'm trying to fix breakfast. Or I've got that one entry that I put up where I wrote ecstasy sitting in a chair. I was just sitting like I'm sitting with you. And then suddenly the ecstasy just flooded from nowhere. I don't know. So, but it's so much fun. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting.
And it gives you, how did it change me? Because I knew the splendor of what was there. And I knew how fabulous it was. And I knew that I was blessed to be some kind of part of this. And so many people give up when they reach a certain age. They're retired from their job, they're either divorced or the fun has gone out of the marriage. And what do? They turn on daytime television.
Yes.
And it's sad because they don't know there's anything more except this very mundane and boring life.
Yeah.
Sad. So keep giving your Shakti pot and helping people, as you're doing wondrous things. And I was sorry. The one thing I truly regret that I never was able to do energy healing in person, but it just didn't ever seem right for me. And I never had a teacher I could trust or would trust. And I never had anybody much to practice. I thought in San Francisco there'd be lots of people to practice. But in order to do that, you either had to join their group or you had to accept their teachings. I just wasn't ready to do that. I just wasn't ready. So I did it my way, which was mostly writing poetry and quite a bit of prose, because I've kept a blog for years and years and years. And those blogs are on the archives of the blog thing. And so they're there if anybody wants to see them. And then I would put them into a book.
What is the address for your blog?
Well, it's www.kundalinisplendor.blogspot.com. That's the blog. But I have also the Facebook, where I always now if I put anything up, it goes on both. Because some people don't want to be on Facebook, and some people on Facebook, but they know the blog is same. Anyway, it's on both. And the Facebook is just my name, Dorothy Walters.
Great.
Yeah, just my name.
When will the next book be out, The Poems to the Goddess?
I'm hoping right away. I'm still working on the technical part. The poems have long been written. They came earlier this year, over about the space of 6 months, and they came very suddenly. And sometimes I would write more than one in an evening. But it's the technical part that does me in.
Mm.
Got to be the proofreading. There's got to be the. And this one got proofread twice by me and both friends. Both were friends. And then you've got to. Well, I've given up on trying to arrange them. I just say, however they come, let that be the arrangement. And there are other technical things. Right now, I've decided, I hope this works. Instead of trying to gather blurbs from famous people, say, who write in the spiritual world, I'm just going to put up some of the responses from readers.
Yeah.
And they tell how this has affected them. But that's going to take a while. But I had hoped to get it out before Christmas of
Well,
this year.
I look forward to reading it, and let us know if there's a preview, because I mean, they also speak to these other levels. It remind me of Rumi's poetry when you're talking to the divine.
I know.
Absolutely. And the first thing I ask people if I meet people and they want to know what kind of poetry I write, or they're going to do something for me, I just say, do you read and like Rumi?
Right.
If they say yes, I know they're the one.
Mm-hmm.
I picked my last helper, my driver and my helper. I asked her, do you like Rumi? She said, oh, yes. I'm taking a course in it right now, or working with a teacher right now. It's fun. It's so wonderful.
Maybe maybe we can do like a book release here, if you like, when your book is officially.
What?
Do a book release here when your book is officially out.
That'd be great. Just great.
That'd be great.
Because I always meet wonderful people when those things happen.
Well, Dorothy, it's so nice to meet you and talk to you and hear your story and what you've put back into the world as this graceful being of grace. So thank you.
If you will, I feel I'll say it right back to you. Are you from Australia or where are you from?
No, just from New York.
New York City.
New York City. I've been from
Where did she say?
New York City. New York City.
I don't know anybody else. I don't know any people in New York, but I've never heard anybody. You speak as though you're Australia.
I traveled a lot. Maybe you're just bringing out a past life in me or something.
That's very possible. I've all had a past life in Australia. We don't know.
I've been Aboriginal. I'm sure I've lived as the Aborigines.
Yeah.
Of course, they didn't talk like that, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, thank you. I should go soon.
Thank you, Dorothy. I'm so appreciative and so grateful.
I'm so grateful. And I love the idea of another together, another discussion. I love it that you do it as a discussion, not just talk.
And we'll send you the link to this interview online so you could post it on your website.
Please do, because I think there are many people who didn't know, and I want to send it to them so they can get it. Yeah, that'd be wonderful. How long have you had this?
We just started this.
Well, we've done like 7, 8 shows, though, at least, right?
I think this is number 9. I think this is our 9th show.
Your 9th show, and you've been doing them one a week?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yes. We missed last week.
Yeah.
But,
About 2 months.
Yeah.
So if you have any suggestions for guests, we're open to hearing that.
Sure, yeah. I know some people who could.
I mean, different, I mean, it's interesting. Everyone has their own story, their own relationship with this energy, and their own path in a way. I mean, it all leads to the same place, but there's many roads to the top of the mountain.
That's right. And they all converge at the top if we make it to the top. But anyway,
Well,
they're all,
you've made it to the top,
You're at the
Dorothy.
top.
well, frankly, I think I got as much as I was ready for in this time. But I will say for myself, the idea of going through anything that intense alone kind of scares me now.
Mhm.
That was
You did it, but
that
you
was
did
one of the
it.
most difficult things. But I did have somebody to talk to inside, and I couldn't do energy healing, but I did what I could do because I'm a word person. And I was prepared to do that because you see, I've been involved in writing of one kind or another all my life, and reading all my life. So I had a foundation in the technique of writing poetry or prose or whatever.
Did you have a family at all? Did you?
Well, I did have a family, but I'm one of those people, and there are many, many of us who wonder if we got in the wrong family. Uh, although there was, they were lawyers. I'll just sum it up that way. And I never shared any of this at all with my family because they would have been sure that I'd gone nuts.
Right.
And it's to so many people. And it separates us with our family. And they're on a different path in a different world. And they're nice people. They're good people.
Mhm.
But boy, I certainly didn't share any of this. But see, I didn't share with anybody for years and years and years. And I finally did share with a couple of friends I had. One thing I did not mention earlier, and I guess I should, and I hesitate to do this because it's very, very personal. But the fact is, there was a tantric element to this, not by design or intention, but it happened. At the time it happened, I was full of unresolved energies, and I didn't realize it. I mean, I didn't think of that as anything even related. It was a long time later I thought about it. That's like a tantric pact practice. The
Mhm.
tantrics and the ancient tantrics expect, especially males. I don't think they did much with the females. Were just sort of get the guys going, and it was tantric.
Mhm.
His sexual energies were activated, you're saying.
Yes, exactly what I'm saying. And I knew I didn't want to say that in public, and I didn't want to write about it. And finally, very recently, I thought, if I'm going to be really honest and tell people what really happened, that was a very important aspect, not the only aspect. But it's
Well, in what way, if you want to go into a little more, if you care to detail, the sexual energy was activated, and then what what did you do with it? If you if you want to share without being too personal, I mean, what do you do with that energy?
why I went in and decided I wanted to, and I read this William Merwin Thompson 2 pages about Kundalini. And it occurred to me I can bring the Kundalini up. I didn't think of it
Uh,
in terms of I'm now going to be a tantric, but
Mhm.
darned if I wasn't anyway. And
Mhm.
I never, ever repeated that experience. And
oh,
no, I never repeated that experience. Uh,
so
but
the sexual element initiated the Kundalini, is what you're saying, in a way, or that?
part of it, yeah, it was one part of this perfect spiritual storm. But if I just, but the rest of it is important too.
Mhm.
And I
Right.
encountered the Kundalini and it brought it up, and then it was ecstasy diffused over the entire system. I
Mm.
think they were all related, and I'm not sure anything could have happened if yet. I think each one was an essential element.
Yeah.
And I
No.
called it the perfect spiritual storm.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that element, because that does happen in the Kundalini. It can, in that prelude or during the Kundalini awakening, there is a whole sexual energy that can rise up or not. But I think it's
Yeah, it's an aspect of it. And I think it's definitely an aspect of it.
yeah. Great. No, thank you. Thank you for everything. Yes, I think we should talk again.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Thank you both. Wonderful.
Mm.
I love what you're doing. Love it. And I'm going to send the replay out to a whole lot of folks.
Great. Yes, please.
I love you, Dorothy. Thank you so much. What a blessing.
Love both of you. I'm just so thrilled.
Thank you, Kai, for, really making this happen, because you're Kai, this is her work. This is her study. This is her passion. I mean, I do a million things, but this is Kai's focus. So,
Well, I was guided to do this, and it's really good, because I was so focused in one direction with my path, and now I'm expanding and finding beautiful new people like you, and yeah, it's been a good exploration for me.
If I ever get some time and get this book finished up and everything, I want to go back and look at all the presentations you've had, because as we've agreed, everyone is different.
yes.
Listening to music, everybody has a different reaction.
Yes.
Music, same music.
Mm.
So, love to you both.
Thank you. Thank you, Kai.
Kundalini love to you both.
See you soon.
God's love to you both.
Thank you.
All the love in the world to you both. And it's there. That's the secret. People write books and call it the secret, but they don't even get close to the secret. I don't. Yeah, I think that. And it's the last thing I'll say, I think, is that Andrew Harvey, when I first met him, had not had a Kundalini awakening. Subsequently, years later, he did have a classic Kundalini, and he said, now I understand. You have to have this experience in order to understand.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, we're all blessed.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
I feel that.
We have to stop talking.
You're a divine being, Dorothy. I feel that divinity.
Well,
So
the same as I said, right back at you, kiddo. Right at you, baby. Right.
And the cool thing is, for anyone listening, Dorothy is available. Yes. You can send an email to you, and
Yeah, and I would add, I am happy to answer an email, to have a phone conversation. I do not try to take people through the entire experience. I'm not that kind of teacher, but I will help people, and many people mostly need to be told, you are not crazy, because they think they are.
Right.
So that's what I do.
Talk to you soon. Thanks.
I will put Dorothy's email in the description. All right. I love you both. Thank you. We'll go now. Bye.
Your eyes are amazing. I'm looking right into them.
Yes, they are.
Beautiful in every way. Every way.
Okay. Bye.
Yeah.